when we're live.
What's up, everybody? This is David Weiss, and I am hosting the Double D podcast with my podcast partner, Daniel Zilberkin. What's up, Dan?
Nothing much. Lazy Sunday, just hanging out. I'm on a little vacation right now. I just finished a job. I'm gonna start a new one, so I got some free time.
Nice. I wish I was on vacation. I'm overdue for one. I want to go back to Jacksonville. Actually, I kind of want to go to Georgia, but awesome. Glad to hear that you're on vacation.
Yeah, I needed it because I was working this crazy job, and now it's over, and I get to relax for a while.
True that. All right. So we got a lot of big free agent news that happened over the past week already. So we're going to tackle the biggest one because it pertains to our team, the Miami Heat. Gordon Hayward signed with the Boston Celtics, breaking my heart. How do you feel about the fact that we lost out on Gordon Hayward and his signing with the Celtics?
I think Mr. Hayward is a very good player. He's in a system in where he wasn't primarily the primary scorer, and he was still very efficient, and he's pretty good. But I don't think he's like a game changer kind of player, good enough to take either the Miami Heat, who were 500, over the top into being a quote unquote contender, or with Boston. I don't think he's good enough by himself to take them over Cleveland, because that's the whole point, right? They signed him, hoping that he would be the one that would take him over the top. But I don't think he's enough by himself to take Boston over the top.
Yeah, I remember that series between Boston and Cleveland. Cleveland destroyed Boston. It wasn't even close. And I don't think Gordon Hayward by himself is going to make a difference in terms of tipping the scale. But I do think that he's a nice addition. It would have been nice if Miami got him. I think Boston isn't finished, though. I think they're going to probably try to trade some of their young players, like maybe Jaylen Brown. They still have Drake Crowder available. They have so many pieces, the Celtics, that they have a lot of options available to them. I know the two biggest trade pieces aren't available anymore, Jimmy Butler and Paul George, but you got to figure that there's still guys out there. Carmelo Anthony is still out there. The Knicks are trying to basically get rid of him for anybody they can get.
I don't know if you heard, but they traded Avery Bradley to Detroit for Marcus Morris.
I did hear about that. You know, I got to give Danny Ainge credit. Even though last week I called him a whiny little bitch, I stand by that, but he is a freaking great GM. He is a diamond in the rough in this era of terrible GMs that we've been exposed to. He's
Let's
made a lot of good moves for the Celtics. They're positioned well, not only right now, but for the future. And
Yep.
it's it is what it is. Guy knows how to manage a team.
And again, they went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. They drafted the third overall pick in the draft, and Jason Tatum, who was supposedly really good in his summer league debut, and they added Gordon Hayward and Marcus Morris. And I know they got manhandled by Boston, but I think they'll, given these additions, and sort of the basic the thing they're trying to get a little more, because that's what it was, and maybe they'll be able to give a little bit of a series next time.
Yeah, hopefully. I don't know. I want Miami to do something. They signed Kelly Olynyk this week. Um, he's an okay player. He's a nice piece to have, but God, I'm really not sure what the Miami Heat can do at this point so that they can be a legitimate contender again. What do you think? Do you think that there's anything Miami can do at this point to really brighten their future?
They just basically gave and Dion waited years of Goran Dragic, who's going downhill. I know now he's so good, but he's in his 30s, so he's not going to get any from this point forward. They drafted Badebayo, who seems to be okay. He's athletic. He's very athletic. And Hassan Whiteside is very good, but they just don't have the assets. You know, we were just talking about Boston, you know, before. So they draft pick because Pat Riley trades away all his draft pick. So unless they can find a way to, you know, make these the Jason and the Warriors salaries and assets, which I don't figure they are.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, this is going to sound strange, but I want him to trade Whiteside because I really feel like in this era of basketball, the big man doesn't really belong anymore. So I kind of want them to trade him. And I don't know, call me crazy. I kind of want them to trade Whiteside and Justice Winslow and try to get like a James Harden.
I don't think Hassan Whiteside has that much value. Even with Winslow, I don't think it's that easy. I think you could trade him and try and get a couple picks or something, but you're not going to get a superstar for Hassan Whiteside, especially because you're saying that nobody wants, you know, the defense first post players anymore. It's 2017. It's a different league.
Yeah, that's kind of a bummer. What did you think about the James Harden signing?
I mean, I saw a Scaleless. He posted on Twitter that basically, you know, since they traded for Chris Paul, they needed to make James Harden happy. They had basically no choice but to do it. And if you're gonna, you know, give anybody that amount, you know, that much money, there aren't many. Right? He does all the things that an NBA player needs to do, and he's still young. It's a great deal, and it's not like, you know, people have been talking about the idea that there is the super max deal. So he's technically maybe even undervalued, because if it was like soccer, European soccer or MLB, and there was no salary cap and no max contracts, you could probably get more than $25 million a year or whatever it is. So it's actually a really good deal if you think about it.
Well, I think that Miami's best move at this point, if they can't trade any of their pieces to get a superstar, is to maybe just start rebuilding.
Yeah, but they seem very unwilling to do that. So it's interesting to have the conversation, but it's not like, you know, Pat Riley, who is in his early 70s, is going to commit to a rebuild at this point. It just seems so silly.
Yeah. Yeah, Pat Riley doesn't like to just tank.
No, he doesn't. So I would love for them to do it, but they're not going to do it. They just signed Waiters and Johnson, and sure, nobody's going to be able to beat Golden State in the sort of, you know, in the next 3 or 4 years, so it's sort of irrelevant. But the East is terrible. That's the only thing Miami has going for them: the fact that the East is terrible, and they can sort of be a 5 seed, having a sort of a weirdly limited roster.
You know what's interesting about Miami is that everybody knows the team to beat in the East is Cleveland, and they never really got that sample size of games during the regular season to see how they stack up against Cleveland, because I want to say at least 3 of the 4 games that Miami played against Cleveland, LeBron sat out.
Yeah.
So I wonder Well, where I'm going with that is that I wonder if in Pat Riley's head he's thinking that Miami might have the players on their roster to actually compete against Cleveland.
I think this is the thing about the way Miami looks right now. They don't have like a single great shooter. They can grind anybody to death. But the question is that a smart way to try and go, do nowadays when everybody's trying to open it up and pace and space and all this and the other? Miami becomes the Death Star and tries to, win every game 87-80. This is what this Heat are looking like. Am I wrong about that?
I think Miami is a well-coached team. They just lack a superstar, and superstars
Sure.
are what you need in order to really. You need a superstar in order to really compete. At the end of the game, the superstar always has the ball, and they manage to create opportunities either for themselves or for their teammates. Because Miami doesn't have a superstar, they're really limited in their options. So Spoelstra, who's a great coach, always designs really good plays so that the teams can score. But when push comes to shove, and let's say Miami is playing Oklahoma City with Russell Westbrook, or they're playing San Antonio with Kawhi Leonard, do they have somebody that can match up with those players and can produce the offensive output that those guys can?
No. The answer is no.
And, I don't know what Miami's game plan is in order to get that guy, because if they're not going to rebuild, that means that they're probably not going to get that guy in the draft. And if they're trying to get somebody from free agency, that's a really big gamble.
And they don't have I just saw this tweet earlier today that basically says that Miami is basically at the cap. They have no cap space. They signed these two guys to 4-year deals, and Hassan Whiteside is on the books for another 3 or 4 years, and so on and so forth. So they would have to try and trade everyone. Maybe that's the plan. Maybe the idea is to try and flip all these guys into something.
I didn't think about that. That's a really good point, because Miami doesn't want to just lose quality talent for nothing.
I mean, nobody wants to lose quality talent, but yeah, I think because if we're going to accept that Pat Riley is some sort of mastermind, this is, he's trying to do it his way, which is definitely not the Philadelphia way. And it is what it is. It just doesn't seem efficient at the moment.
Well, there was a report that came out earlier today that Miami was going to try to get LeBron when he becomes a free agent next season. And they were going to try to bring back Dwayne Wade. But I would say it's a long shot for them to get LeBron back, because if he is going to leave Cleveland, I imagine it's going to be for some other opportunity, something along the lines of positioning himself so that once he does finish with the NBA, maybe he can transition into something else. But at the end of the day, I think that he's not going to go to Miami. I think that if he wanted to be competitive, he would just stay in Cleveland because they have the best supporting cast. I say that with a disclaimer because the Lakers have a ton of cap space available.
Yep.
And everybody knows that Paul George, once next season is up, is going to sign with the Lakers. And
yes,
so LeBron could join him. And there's talk that there's one more person that could be signed as well. So that's an interesting situation to look out for.
I think that's going to be the sort of transactional news all through next year, or through this next year, is the fact, where is LeBron going to go? Is he talking to Magic, this and that and the other? You know, does he like Lonzo Ball? Does he like LeVar Ball? Will LeVar and LeBron get along? All this stuff. That's all we're going to talk about for the next 12 months.
Speaking of Lonzo Ball, I saw his first 2 games. They couldn't have been further from each other. The game he played yesterday against the Celtics, he had a triple-double. He had 11 points, 11 assists, 11 rebounds. The first game that he played against the Clippers, he finished with 5 points. And I think he took 15 shots. Lonzo Ball does not look impressive to me. I remember when I saw Dwayne Wade playing in Marquette in the what's the tournament called? Well, I remember watching Dwayne Wade play in March Madness at some point, and I just remember saying to myself, "Wow, this guy is unbelievable. He just wowed me with his talent."
Yeah.
When I saw Lonzo Ball, I didn't feel anything like that. Lonzo Ball seems like he's going to be an okay player. I think his ceiling is Jason Kidd, but I think it's more likely that he's going to become a backup point guard in the NBA. I think he's going to be a major disappointment.
We'll have to wait and see, but from what I watched UCLA play a whole bunch. They were my favorite team to watch last year because FSU got really depressing to watch halfway through the season. And he has great court vision. I don't think he's a great shooter. Point guards need to be great shooters. So I think that just he'll be able to be a starting point guard. He'll be okay. Maybe not great, but we'll see. From what I saw, I think he looks pretty good.
You know, another thing that stood out to me about him, he doesn't play good defense. He doesn't dribble especially well. Like, he won't blow by people. I don't know. There's just not – the court vision is there, but I think that's the only real quality talent that I see from him.
He just looks – the thing about Lonzo Ball is that he looks weird. Nothing's normal. And it just makes it complicated to evaluate on a sort of regular basis. Just because he just doesn't look like a point guard should. So maybe you're right. And I'm not exactly the most versed basketball person, but he seems fine to me.
But it's like what I'm also thinking about is that with all the headlines that LeVar Ball created over the summer for his son, I think that NBA players, once the season does start, are going to really come after him. And I think they're going to try to embarrass him. I think it's going to affect his self-esteem. Like, I think he is in for a really tough rookie season. He was the person that a lot of experts slated to be the rookie of the year. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to have a really rough rookie season. I think he's going to be a big disappointment. And you know what the LA market is like. I mean, they've been waiting for a superstar ever since Kobe left. He's the guy that was billed as that by Magic because he wanted to create some buzz for the team. The Laker fan base is desperate for some star power. And I think that he's got a lot of pressure riding on his shoulders between how bad the Lakers have been the last couple of years and with all the stuff that his father has said. And now Magic is kind of piggybacking on what his father said. I don't know. I think Lonzo Ball, I think he's in for a hell of a rookie season.
So who's going to win the rookie?
My thought is the person best positioned to win Rookie of the Year. Well, my original thought was that Ball was the one best positioned because he's going to have the green light to run the team and do whatever he wants. But I just don't think he has the talent to succeed. So I think Fultz is going to be the Rookie of the Year. I think he's going to excel in Philly. He's got Ben Simmons. He's got Joel Embiid. I think Fultz is going to have a great season. I think he's going to be Rookie of the Year.
I think Fultz has a very good chance I think Josh Jackson is somebody everybody needs to watch out for because he's going to get a lot of opportunities to be a feature player on that team. And I think he's a very good offensive player. I'm putting my money on Josh Jackson for Rookie of the Year.
All right. So something else I wanted. Yep. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna ask, is there anything else left
to talk about? Yeah. Who do you think has made the best trade so far this offseason? Like, forget trade even. Like, which team do you think has upgraded itself best over the summer so far?
If Oklahoma City gave up like absolutely nothing to get Paul George, that was a really good trade. I don't understand what in the hell is happening in the Pacers front office, but basically Sam Presti gave up nothing to get Paul George. So that's probably as good a trade as there's been, in my opinion.
Yeah, I saw the Paul George trade. It is a good addition to their team. And he's probably been the best pickup of any player. You can argue that Chris Paul was maybe a better addition for Houston, but I still don't like the fit with James Harden. But my thinking is that Minnesota with Jimmy Butler is going to be a powerhouse now. They got Holmes, they got Wiggins, now they got Jimmy Butler. That's a really up and coming team. They got Tom Thibodeau as the coach. I think that they're going to make it to the playoffs.
I mean, they're definitely going to make it to the playoffs. They added Jimmy Butler, and they were already pretty good last year, and they don't have to deal with Ricky Rubio anymore, which is always a good thing. Jeff Teague. I don't know if Jeff Teague is necessarily much better than Ricky Rubio, but he's definitely less frustrating because he can shoot a little bit. So I think, I would say that they're going to be surprising. They might even go to the second round, maybe even.
Which team do you think is going to go farther? Oklahoma City or Minnesota?
Minnesota.
That's why I think the Butler edition was the best one.
Oh, but you asked me which trade. No, they're both good trades. I think it's splitting hairs.
At the end of the day, I consider the player, but I also consider the fit on the team that player was traded to. Sure. I like Paul George. He's obviously a great player. But with Russell Westbrook, I don't know how he's going to deal with the fact because his entire career, he's always been the first option. Now he's going to have to be the second option. And he's not only going to have to be the second option, he's going to be the second option on a Russell Westbrook-led team. I think he's in for a major backseat, and I don't know how he's going to handle that. So that has me feeling a little apprehensive about their prospects next season.
Yeah, it's probably you add Paul George. They still improve themselves a lot, so there's no question that they're going to be better. Just probably not better by enough.
They also got Patrick Peterson.
He's a nice player. He can play some defense. He's interesting. And
I can't even remember the last game I saw him play, so I can't really comment.
It's sort of, and the Clippers bought out Jamal Crawford. And they're talking about Jamal Crawford going to Minnesota. So that's interesting. So he's not that good anymore. And he's like 45 trillion years old at this point. But shooters, just add as many shooters as you can get. It's never a bad idea.
All right, so this is the last thing I wanted us to talk about, okay? Put yourself in Pat Riley's shoes starting today. Let's say that you are now the GM of the team because Pat Riley had a heart attack, right? And you were just named the GM. What do you do to get Miami back to becoming a championship team again?
I think we kind of talked about this earlier. I think we need to find, try and see which of these guys that we have, especially Dragic and Whiteside and Winslow. Those are probably the three most valuable players Miami have. Flip them, trade them, get as many picks as you can. Suck for a while, do what you can, get the picks, and try and go full Philadelphia. It's the only way to get better. Get as many picks as you can and try and suck.
Here's an interesting question. Carmelo Anthony is out there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if he would want to come to Miami, but for the sake of argument, let's say he did. Would it be wise for Miami to trade for him?
I mean, they'd probably have to trade Winslow, right?
I don't think so. I think Anthony's stock is so low at this point that they could trade some combination of. Well, they would need to trade James Johnson, but they just signed him, so they wouldn't be able to do that. But it would need to be some combination of like James Johnson, Dion Waiters, one of those guys. Like they would need to trade one of their younger prospects who, is a decent player but isn't like a cornerstone like Winslow or Whiteside.
I don't think. Haven't we spent the past 5-6 years talking about how Carmelo isn't a difference maker and he's not a winner and this and that and the other? Why would we want that? I get it. He's a good player still. But that contract's awful. He's not getting any younger. There's no way. There's nothing I would like to do to trade for what's-his-face for Carmelo. That just sounds like a bad idea.
Here's one thing that Carmelo does offer you is he offers you consistent scoring. Mm-hmm. And he's somebody that the team can go to at the end of the game.
Sure. I mean, but I don't think anybody's beating Cleveland and Golden State anyway. So what's the difference?
Well, the difference is that if Pat Riley is trying to win now, and it kind of seems like he is, adding somebody like Anthony would make a little bit of sense, especially because his price tag is so cheap.
Yeah, I guess.
He wouldn't be my first option,
it's a good idea.
He's out there. He's out there.
I think your sound is starting to go bad again.
I'll end things with this question. If you're Miami, would you feel more confident about the upcoming season with Carmelo Anthony minus, let's say, a Waiters or James Johnson, or would you be more comfortable with the team's winning prospects as currently constructed?
I feel like, given what the Eastern Conference looks like right now, where it's very top heavy and Cleveland is the only good team, I feel like it makes no difference, in my opinion. I think Miami is very interesting, and they could get a 5 seed or a 4 seed just because the East sucks so bad. So I don't think adding Carmelo would make them better than a 4 seed.
So you think no matter who Miami adds at this point, you think it's Cleveland's conference to lose?
Absolutely. I think like we started with me talking about how Boston adding Gordon Hayward and making these moves still isn't enough. It's
right.
Cleveland is in, they're basically already in the finals. There needs to be some sort of really bad injury, like Kyrie Irving or LeBron getting injured, for anybody to have a shot. And even then, it's a little doubtful.
This is what I hate about the NBA. It's so predictable.
It is.
We're in early July, and yet we already know what the outcome of next year's NBA Finals is going to be.
Yeah, because these teams are way too good, and they need to contract the league by like 6 teams.
I don't understand how people can argue that super teams is good for the NBA. This is terrible. There's no suspense.
Actually, this offseason has proven that at least people are reacting. Chris Paul going to Houston and Jimmy Butler going to Minnesota and all of these things. So at least some people are trying to like play the game. Last year, people weren't trying at all.
I still think that the team that's best equipped to change the NBA Finals so that it's not between Golden State and Cleveland is San Antonio. They added Rudy Gay. You can never underestimate Greg Popovich. And San Antonio is just a really well-run team.
They are, but they don't have Patty Mills as their backup and technically they're a starter now, I guess. And Tony Parker is not getting any younger. That's why there was so much talk about Chris Paul going to San Antonio, because they need a legit point guard. So I don't see how they're going to do any better without improving a point guard.
Well, they got LaMarcus Aldridge. He's been the big disappointment of the team. And
yes,
I wonder if they could maybe trade him and get a decent point guard in return and then really change their fortune.
If that's a talk for February, absolutely. That's a trade. That's a definite trade deadline move.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for us. Thank you to everyone listening to the podcast. Dan, you got any final thoughts to say before we wrap it up?
No, just have a good week, everyone.
All right, ditto. Bye.
We